As you can both see, there's a party going on behind me because it's my wife's birthday. But you know what? I want to say Roger and Amber. You know what, you two?
The show must go
I
on.
said to my wife of 6 years.
Sure you did.
I said on your birthday, honey, I said, the podcast cannot wait. People need to know about consultative selling in the coaching industry. People need to know about this.
Sure.
And
That's what
so
you
you take our children on your birthday and you care for them and you give me our entire home so that I have a quiet space to record this podcast for you, dear listener. I hope you enjoy it.
I can't wait to see the payback on your birthday.
Oh, it ain't going to be pretty. Well, Calvin and I actually leave tomorrow. We're looking forward to it. Calvin and I leave tomorrow for the first ever overnight daddy-son trip.
It's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be so much fun. So I'm not even bringing my computer, but we're doing 4 nights in Oaxaca. And Allison is going with her mom and Jaden to Guadalajara.
Oh, nice.
For 4 days. So it'll be super fun. Anyway, I want to start today, you two, and to everybody listening, welcome, with a story about when I lost a sale and how I lost a sale. And I thought that it would be a good place to start this. And so it's a very long time ago. This was actually one of the first, was it one of the first ones? I don't remember the exact timeline. It was very early on in my in-person personal training career. And I got matched with a new member at the gym that we were going at. And for context, the gym that I worked at was called Body and Soul Fitness. It was a very high-end, very small boutique gym. Like the people training there had money. If somebody was coming there, they expected personal training. Like that was and so I was matched to do an assessment with this person who was going to buy training. Like it wasn't like an assessment where you need to sell them on the idea of it. It was an assessment that you basically just don't screw up. I liken the early days of my career too. I wasn't really a salesperson. I was like a glorified order taker. And so here's a place where I screwed up taking that order. And so he was, I don't remember his name, so I'm going to make up a name. Doesn't really matter, but it's just more fun when they have names. So let's call him Joseph. So Joseph was like mid-50s, reasonably healthy guy, feeling his body kind of hurting him a little bit, but he had a little bit of extra weight. So he came in and we were doing the assessment, and all that I could talk about was me, because I was a kinesiology graduate and I was a certified personal trainer. And so he needed to know these things, of course, right? And then I impressed upon him the importance of posture. And I made him go against, we had like a checkered wall, like a posture checker. I don't know if these things are common in gyms still, but we had like a checkered wall and a string coming down. And the idea behind this was, of course, you take pictures of them and you assess their posture, which like no idiot, like 21-year-old new personal trainer should be telling somebody that they have bad posture because they stood up against a checkered wall. But that's what happens in gyms. And I'll save you my opinion on assessments. Actually, I'm not going to save you my opinions on assessments. The vast majority of assessments that happen in gyms, I now know are a complete and utter fucking waste of time, because the person performing the assessment has no way of knowing whether actually anything is wrong. And even if something is wrong, whether it's a problem or not a problem. And the things that I used to tell clients back in the day, I just laugh at myself for now. I mean, this is part of our growth. Like, I have no idea, Susan, if your glutes are firing or not. Like, I'm sorry for telling you that they weren't. Like, I don't know. I
They're underactive, John. Like, they're always underactive.
Like, you got a skinny butt, but I mean, that doesn't mean that your glutes don't work. Anyway.
I dare you to say that to any woman.
Skinny butt Susan. Butt. Hey, skinny butt Susan. You sus.
Amber, I have a request for this podcast.
Oh, God.
Can you please go to ChatGPT?
Yes, I'm in.
And request a rap song about Skinny Butt Susan for Ren to perform at the end of the show?
So excited.
How do you make sure that your listeners never log off before the end of the show? Skinny Butt Susan rap. Slow jam. Let's do it.
Oh, man.
So I had Joseph stand up against this wall, right? Like this checkered wall. And I was telling him about all of this research about posture and about how it's really important. And then I set this plan for him because I was smart enough at that point to know that the best way to get somebody, into personal training is to build a plan and help them envision the plan. And then of course, the plan and the outcome of the plan is their dream is their vision, and then your coaching is like the bridge between it. The problem that I made here, of course, was that the plan and the dream at the end of the plan was something that Joseph didn't care about and didn't think was an issue. And so I'm here telling him about how his posture is all out of whack and how that's a big problem and how we're going to fix it because I'm so good at what I do because I have a kinesiology degree. And Joseph, of course, gave me the whole, oh God, what was it? It wasn't I left my credit card at home. It was something like, I think he said, I don't know my schedule right now. Can you message me tomorrow and I'll book a time, right? And then just ghost, just pure ghosting from then on out. And then I heard from my manager at the gym that Joseph had basically called the gym and said that he wasn't going to join. And so I just completely botched the sale with this guy. And the problem was that, of course, Joseph didn't come in because his posture was an issue. It didn't cause him any pain. He didn't see any kind of an issue with it. And so he didn't want to hire a personal trainer to like solve something that wasn't a problem. Meanwhile, I was so forward to like basically tell him how smart I was and all of my education and about how I'm the right person to help him solve this problem that he didn't even think was a problem. Okay, now I'm going to flash forward to Debbie. Debbie was many years later in my career, and she was referred to me from one of my other clients. And so I could see Amber's face, I think, as she's like entering in this prompt. And it's just really, really great. I'm just seeing her face, and she's clearly not paying attention to anything I'm saying because she's responding like in the middle of my sentences before I say anything. And then all of a sudden,
you cannot ask me to do something fun and not expect my brain to hyper focus. Okay,
and then that is not how that works. And then I just see her eyebrows raise up like the second word into a sentence. So nothing to do with me, but I feel like ChatGPT just came back with the lyrics is what happened.
These are the only times in the podcast where we see Amber in a pure state of joy. when she sent to ChatGPT, it's like all the joy comes out. I love it.
The joy comes out. So this is many years later now. Debbie was referred to me by one of my clients. Debbie had never been in the gym before. She was very, very nervous. She was in her 70s. And she was like really, really frail. I wrote an Instagram post about it because this is like later on in her training. But basically, Debbie was a early childhood. What was her official term? She was a psychiatrist. No, she was a psychiatrist, but she specialized in she went into schools and she diagnosed kids with learning disabilities and things. And so she was tiny. Debbie was like 80 pounds in her 70s, had been doing this for years. Insane back pain because what she had to do every day, she was in a different school and the school parking lots were often quite big. And because she would arrive in the middle of the day, she wouldn't get a good spot in the parking lot. So she would have to park like in the back of the parking lot and walk into the school. And she had this bag because the way that she assessed these children was through a series of games that she had to bring with her. And so she had this bag of all of these games. And so she had to carry the bag into the school. And, for you or me or Amber, right, it wasn't a big problem, but this bag was like 35 pounds. And this woman, it was like a quarter of her weight. I mean, more. And she was very frail, had never lifted weights in her life. And so getting this bag out of the trunk of her car, because there's the lip in it, like all of these things are like kind of occupational therapists think about. But I've written about it because I think a lot of the times what trainers can really do to help is act sometimes a little bit as occupational therapists. Like what in your day-to-day life is causing issues? Can we better prepare you for that action in addition to strengthening you so that, you know, she's going to have to bring this bag into these schools. There's nothing that you can do to avoid that. And so she had to lift this bag like over the lip of the trunk of her car. And then she had to get it into a carry position on one of her sides. And she had to carry it into the school. And in these parking lots, there was often obstacles and stuff. Yeah, she had to walk around cars, or there'd be puddles, or in the wintertime, there'd be ice because we live in Toronto. And so there'd be obstacles, and then she'd have to get it into the school. And so all of this was causing her a lot of pain. And so I've written about the training with her before, which is tangentially related to, you know, the sales process. But the training, of course, with her was basically preparing her and like teaching her how to lift the bag with proper form out of the trunk. And so I had her bring in the bag, and then I progressively overloaded it, right? So we worked our way up to the weight that she had to load it with. We didn't start with that. And then I taught her how to brace her knees against the trunk of the car using boxes in the gym and basically hinge and lift the bag up. And then what she was doing is, of course, she would huck this bag up and then swing it around to her side. So then what I had her do was take 2 steps back, put the bag down with good form, step to the side of it, and do a suitcase deadlift. So then we trained the suitcase deadlift, and then we, of course, trained suitcase walks. And I had her doing like basically obstacle courses in the gym. Really interesting training. So I've written about that a few times. But she was super nervous to come into the gym. Like it took, like her friends referred her to me because I'd been working with them for a long time, and they trusted me, and they knew that she needed help, but she was really nervous, not just about like the training, but just, she was just really unsure of herself and uncomfortable, and gyms are scary, and everybody's going to look at me, and I'm not going to belong, and all of these things that, I mean, all of us have in new places. Mm-hmm. And she also had if I remember correctly, there was a shoulder issue too, because the story has to do with actually the shoulder more than like the occupational quote unquote therapy that we were doing. And so she came in, and we had a receptionist at that time in the gym whose name was Rochelle. She was awesome. She was so much fun. People would come into the gym when they were just walking by, if they were members, not even if they were working out, just to say hi to Rochelle. And they would like bring their friends who they were walking with because Rochelle made them feel so good about themselves. And then the gym owner, to cut costs, the first thing that he did was say, we don't need a receptionist. We're going to put in a 24-hour like login system. And then he was like, well, new membership has really died down. It's like, yeah, because Rochelle was driving it. Like everybody came for her. And that's a good example of like human. So anyway, so I said to Rochelle, I was like, hey, this woman's coming in. We'll call her Dolores for no reason, just because it's like a 70-year-old woman's name, I feel. And so Dolores came in, and I said to Rochelle, Dolores is coming in. She's never been in the gym before. She's a friend of, you know, these other clients that come to the gym that, of course, Rochelle loved and whatnot. And she's really nervous to come in, and I'm going to be coming straight from a client, so I'll make sure that I'm on time, but like she's probably going to be in like 5 minutes early, right? Because people do that. So just a heads up. And so Rochelle, of course, you know, she walks in the door, she's like, oh, you must be Dolores. Oh my God, it's so good to see you. You know, John told me about you, and your friends told me about it. She walks up to her with a water bottle. She like walks her around, like just so this woman isn't like sitting, like waiting by herself. She accompanied her for the entire time until I was ready. And then when I was ready, of course, I sat with Dolores in the room, and I listened to her. I didn't tell her anything about me. I listened to the stuff that she was telling me. And what she was worried about was her shoulder. Right. And so she was worried that her shoulder was giving a lot of pain and whatever. And so all that I did then over the course of that entire sales meeting, so the first one with Joseph was like an hour. This sales meeting with Dolores was maybe 15 minutes. And all that I did was I listened to her biggest concern. And then I took out a study on like shoulder pain that I had in my drawer. And I said, you know, this is your friends told me a little bit about you, so obviously I knew about this before, but I also did some research, and so here's kind of the current research. Here's what it's saying. I don't know if this is true for you, but here's the process that we're going to go to make sure that you're pain free, and we build your way up. And also, just so you know, there's 2 studios at the back of the gym that are closed doors, and the time of the day that you're going to coming in at like 11 a.m. I was like, time of the day, both of them are going to be empty. Both of them have their own air conditioning systems. We can work in those studios with the door closed for as long as you need to until you feel comfortable in the gym. Signed up. Didn't know anything about, right? Like, I mean, I guess her friends had told her about me, but it's so radically different from the consult that I did with Joseph, where it was all about me and about all of the things that I know and all of the things that I recognized, versus just Dolores didn't need to know anything about me other than she was really worried about these 2 things. And my only job was to figure out what she was really worried about and basically talk about how I was going to kind of ease some of those nerves and then, execute it. And then it was just a beautiful thing what happened with her. I mean, we did work out in that studio for God, at least a month. I mean, twice a week we were in the studio by ourselves. And I would, I'd bring in some basic pieces of equipment, but really for this woman who was in her 70s, had never been in the gym. I mean, it was teaching the body how to move, how to brace. It was a lot of that. And then one day she said, I think we can go outside the door. And so we set up, I kid you not, on a mat, maybe a foot outside of the door of the studio.
I legit would have cried out of like sheer joy and pride for her.
It was amazing. And then, within a few months, this woman is doing suitcase walks around an obstacle course right smack dab in the center of the gym where everybody can see her. And so I like those 2 stories. Obviously they're in person, and a lot of what we talk about is online, but I think that's unreasonable because I think the vast majority of people train in person, or at least do a lot of in person. And those 2 stories to me really highlight the difference between like a good consult and a bad consult. And really all that I could think about as I was like remembering those 2 lines is just how amazing how far paying attention will get you, and how much selling is just about curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you guys can help me write. Yeah, okay. Now you guys can help me write the rest of that section of the book. That'd be great.
I actually just went through a very obnoxious consultation process. Was it yesterday? My days are confused. But so I'm looking at having my master bathroom shower redone, converting a tub into a walk-in shower.
You're gonna put some granite countertops?
Hell no. I am not responsible enough for granite. Are you crazy? So anyway.
Is it gonna be nice though? Are you like doing a nice job? Are you like,
I hope
this
so.
is gonna be an adult bathroom?
Not with as much. Wait, what?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm not an adult enough to have an adult. I walk into some of my friends' places. I'm like, this is a bathroom for adults.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for it. But so they didn't tell me how long it was going to take. And so I expected like 20 minutes, and he gets there and he starts doing measurements. Doesn't ask me. Yeah. Doesn't ask me a thing.
Like, where'd you find this dude?
A Facebook ad. Like seriously, just Facebook ad.
He's just a contractor.
It's a company that's in a bigger city. And so they're local and, have been in business for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, so they sent out the sales guy and he's like, did they tell you how long, I like the hat. How long,
thank you.
Visual props are wonderful. How
you meant John's hat.
Yes. Sorry. John's hat.
I just assumed.
All of our ADHD is kicking in. All of ours.
So who said
did the salesperson? The salesperson asked, did they tell you how long I'd be here? I'm like, no, I had budgeted 20 minutes because I have to work. He's like, well, normally they're like at least 90 minutes.
Sheesh.
I was like, okay. So like we have a problem. So now I have to make up this time later at my normal working block schedule. So I'm already a little irritated, but not once during this 90 minutes did he ask me a question about really what I was looking for beyond aesthetics. And like,
What was
He
he
talked-
doing? He was just like scoping out like a.
all he was doing was going through like what, like almost like old school sales, like conventional sales, like they used to teach, where it's like, tell them about your, or what you think you're supposed to do. Tell them about the company and how you do things in the community and how you're unlike anyone, everyone else. And didn't ask me about any of my pain points whatsoever. And spent 90 minutes talking. I may have spoken for maybe 8 minutes total during that time.
You're like, Gus, I need some fucking drywall in this bitch. I need some caulking up onto.
I just need some
connect the
tiles. Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Like this ain't complicated, Gus.
Yeah, and then went from like $22,000 to like if you make a decision today, it's $16,000. You know, that kind of crap.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
And so it's just funny because I'm pretty patient. And so I know what he's doing. And so I'm just kind of playing a game in my head, what the next thing is. And it was fun because I was right most of the time because it's very like car salesman-y type stuff. And it was just a terrible experience. He did a great job. He was super sweet. I enjoyed him immensely, but like.
Yeah, Gus is a sweetheart. I mean, he does so much in the community.
Yeah, he was very nice, but like there was no way, even at the like, if it would have been in my price point, I still would have said no because like, it was just not, he didn't address anything or didn't ask about what I needed. And he just talked way too much.
So how would he have done that better? Like how would he have started I'll call it an engagement. I don't know. It's a weird term, but how would he have started the engagement?
By asking me questions, right? Like you said earlier, like consultations should be fairly short because our job is not to tell everything about who we are, what we do, and all of that stuff. Our job is to narrow down the information about what they care about. So if he would have started off by asking questions, like, sure, do the measurements. Yeah. What are you looking for? Right? What's best case scenario? What are your non-negotiables and that you're looking for in this? How will you know that we've done a good job? Right? If he would have asked more questions, that would have been really helpful. And that's most of what we do, right? I don't care. I mean, as much, I come from a military background. So them telling me that, they work with vets, I mean, cool, but I don't really care when it comes to my walk-in shower. Unless you're sending me G.I. Joe, it was part of the shower. I don't
Let me tell you about what I think about men who fly large objects.
I have done enough military. I don't need any more.
Oh my gosh.
Did you just say I have done enough military? Because that's hilarious that you said that. No, that's fine. Okay. I'm your boss. We don't need to go any further, but I just wanted to highlight that you said that. Yep. Okay. You said one line there that I wrote down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Again, I'm stealing it for the book and
sure.
I'll probably give you guys credit like somewhere like at the end, like it might be a bit smaller print than the rest of the book.
That's okay. It's in the book somewhere. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I'll say it somewhere. One of the lines I want to really focus in on because I thought it was a great definition that you gave. You said, and I'd love to talk about this a little bit more because the minute that you said it, I was like, boom, that's it. Our job is to narrow down what they care about.
Did you say that? She said that?
She said that. That was one of the first things that she said before she talked about banging a bunch of military people.
What? That's the obvious choice after dark.
Right. The obvious choice after dark. That's awesome. But that is a good line, though. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Please continue. I just didn't remember her saying.
I want you to continue. I want you to talk to me about what that line means to you, man. Our job is to narrow down what they care about. When you have like such a good background in sales and insurance sales and outside of fitness, and then of course fitness for yourself, and then you consult with a lot of our students in the Online Trainer Academy. Like you are in this and have been in this for much longer than I have.
I'm in the thick of it with 2 C's. Thick of it. I'm in the thick of it all day, baby. So here's what it means. Here's what it means to me. It's a really good thing we don't have an HR representative. Right. They would have left a long time ago.
They would not be happy.
We'd be closed or they'd be gone, one or the other. But when I heard you telling the difference between your 2 stories, Jonathan, one where you expound ridiculously on who you are and what you do, and one where you just got curious. And then I hear Amber talk about our boy Gus, good enough guy. Just didn't ask any questions.
Yeah.
Wasn't curious.
Good enough, Gus.
Good enough guy.
Gus.
What I translate that to immediately is having conversations with our students in the Online Trainer Academy, and them telling me that they're having challenges with their enrollment calls. And I'll say, tell me what you tell them about your program. And it's always too much. They're always talking.
Tell me about that. So tell me about that, because I am not. I think that I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm sure you do.
But I'm not in it because Zoom calls are the bane of my existence.
Right.
And so I go so far out of my way to avoid any kind of scheduled calls of any kind ever. And this podcast, like, I finished this podcast and I need to, like, basically hyperventilate in the corner for a while.
Yes.
That introverted, and Zoom for introverts is not a thing. It doesn't exist.
It's not a thing.
So I don't have the, like, in person kind of like feet on the ground experience that you do. So tell me what you mean.
Right. So they over explain what they think the other person wants in the complete absence of ever asking what the person wants.
Like the packages, like
the
you're gonna
package.
get 2 calls, like you're gonna get
all of
like,
it.
give me like examples. Give me like tangible examples.
I'm gonna give you 2 clear differences in
and please
this
make up
conversation.
names for these people, because that's what we do, and ideally very ethnic names.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Michael and Tito.
That's a good one.
Because Michael's Michael and Tito's Tito. In any case, so the difference between saying, let me tell you a little bit about the program. Well, I've been a trainer for the last 2,300 years. And in addition to that, I do corrective exercise. And what corrective exercise really means is that I'm doing injury prevention, and I'm also doing injury recovery. So if you ever get an injury, or if you've had one, I'm skilled in working with that. Not only that, but I give at least 3 phone calls per week, because those phone calls are going to set you up for success. And when I mean set you up for success, it's going to make sure that you don't feel like you're out there on Internet Island where and on and on.
See that episode of The Simpsons where Homer's listening to somebody and it shows his brain, and his brain is just like an elephant on a pedestal, and it's just going do 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 do. That's all that I could think about as you were talking.
And
who
but
gives
this is
a shit about that, right? Like this is one of the biggest things I think that we're trying to get across is your education largely is how you get people results. It has very little to nothing to do with getting you people that you can then get results.
Zero. And that's how Tito does it, right? That's how Tito does it. Michael on the
What's Tito's last name?
Jackson. Gosh, Jonathan, he's one of the Jackson 5. It's
So
Michael
which
Jackson's
one's
older
Michael?
brother, Tito.
So what's Michael's last name?
Michael's the famous one. Stop it, John.
You're saying Michael and Tito's last names are both? That is not that creative, right?
You're embarrassing Dr. Allison on her birthday. The musical connoisseur she is.
I'm gonna go with Michael Sanchez.
Don't let her listen to this.
Tito Cueto.
No,
We're such a mess.
you're the only
Cueto
person
is
going with
C-U
that.
with the squiggly line ED.
I like the squiggly line. Now,
It's a tilde.
can you put a Scott comment in there too, John?
Jesus Christ.
To make it really ethnic. But what Michael does, Michael says, hey, when I'm looking at somebody in your situation, now that I understand it, probably about 3 steps away. Step 1, you need a customized exercise routine. You could do something out of a book, but that's not really for anybody, because it's basically for everybody. You probably need a little bit of help with nutrition.
Whoa, hold on. That's probably not for anybody, because that's for everybody.
Because it's made for everybody. Step 2, nutrition.
Shit, that's a good line.
We both
Write it
probably
down.
know that nutrition's maybe not the strongest suit for you right now. No problem. We're not going to overcomplicate it. I'm actually going to show you how to simplify your nutrition so you can stick and stay with it longer. And number 3, a little accountability. Am I right? And they always say yes. I know I'm right because they already said this. They said this earlier in the talk when I asked all the questions, right? But step 3, a little accountability, just to keep you on the path. Make sure you got somebody to check in with. Some people need more, some people need less. We'll tailor it to you. That's all of my explaining about the program. That's it.
And you're connecting those to things that they said before. And
Things
that's
that
how
they
you
said.
choose what
That's
to
how I
say.
choose what
because
the
you're
3 things
actually
are.
listening.
It's always 3 things, and it's always 3 things that they said because I asked some questions, right? But my need to explain deeply how the program works just confuses the shit out of the person. Like they don't, and you'll know when you've got a person really confused because they'll ask questions in a way that indicates that you're having an intellectual challenge. It's like me at the automotive dealership. I don't know shit about cars, but if a salesman talks me to death, well, I got to say stuff that makes it seem like I know. So I'll say, what's the mileage city versus highway? I don't know shit about that. I'll say, are the brakes anti-lock? I don't know what that means. I'll say, what about the rack and pinion steering? Don't know what that means either. But confusion leads people to want to prove that they are not confused. And you end up having a longer conversation than you need to have. And the client is going to block their own blessing by asking their way out of hiring a good coach. Just don't talk so much. You don't need all that. Like Jonathan said, they don't need to know about your kinesiology degree. Nobody cares.
Let it be a
I have one, by the way, for anybody listening. I do have one. It was a 4-year honors degree.
Like graduated with like a C-, though, probably.
On a good day.
And that's admirable because it just shows your work ethic after being an average student, Jonathan. You built your way to this.
It shows that I understand the 80-20 of this kind of thing.
That's right.
I realized without being able to describe it very early on in university that the marks I got were so completely irrelevant as long as I passed. And there were so many other opportunities in university that mattered so much more than trying to get 90s. And that if I just get 60s and work at the gym 25 hours a day, and like participate in exercise and whatnot, and intramurals and all that, then like, aren't I going to have a better experience and get more out of it? And you know what? The answer is yes. Yes, you are, John. You made a good decision, even though you look at your diploma and you think about how funny it is that you have the same piece of paper as the people who worked way harder than you did to get that piece of paper.
You marry a doctor, it equals out. It evens out if you marry a doctor, John. So you get a good plan the whole time.
I really think that it's important to understand where you are in your life at any one point in time and to assess like when your stock is the highest and cash in when it's high. And so, I mean, I proposed on my 30th birthday to Allison because I'm a Eastern European Jewish guy. Like,
if you weren't going to be a doctor, you need to marry one.
30 hits and I start going downhill. Like my body starts breaking. I start getting hair in my ears. I mean, all these things are happening. And then but Allison is Chinese. Like she's good till she's 70. And then there's going to be like one morning where I'm going to wake up and she's going to have aged like those 40 years in one night. She's going to, I fully expect one morning to wake up next to her and just like give her a dragon breath kiss and say good morning and be like, well, it happened. You lost. There goes you somehow shrank 3 inches overnight. And I don't know how your shoe size went from a 6 to a 2, but that also happened. So what I'm saying is that if you understand when your stock's the highest, you got to cash out. Here's bringing us back to sales. Here's a lot of what I think about in terms of a framework, in terms of how to approach consultative selling the right way, is that I think a lot of people go into sales calls with the intent to sell, but that's not actually the right approach. I think the intent whenever you go into a sales call should be to help and to coach. And in order to do that, to be curious, because the servicing of a client actually begins on a sales call. The servicing of a client begins when you get them to go deep and see the problem in a way that perhaps they've never seen it before. Then after they've said that and you paraphrase it back to them and you open up the space for them to absorb that, they might realize that the problem is actually deeper than they originally thought. And that's when they begin to sell themselves and realize that now is the time that they really need to take action on it. And that's usually how it goes. And that's the easiest way to make a sale than any hard selling or tricks or anything like that. Like I heard this fucking jackass talk about this on this short video the other day. I don't know who it was, some slimy something or other. And he was talking about this trick that he used to use when he sold gym memberships about, how he'd like trick people into not being able to object, saying that they left their credit card at home. And it was just like the slimiest thing ever. It was like, yeah, earlier in the call, you get them to like give you a piece of ID, and their ID is in the same place as a credit card, so you'll see it, and then you can call them out on it afterwards. I'm like, you fucking slime ball. Like, come on, man, we can do better than this. This is how you're teaching people to sell gym memberships? Like, nah. I'll never see one thing from one person, and because there's not anybody in this world that I agree with everything that they do. Like, I think that's unreasonable. And I think it's unreasonable to see one piece of content from somebody and say, oh, that's who they are, or that's what they do. That having been said, when somebody is like bragging about slime ball tactics of like that, how you do one thing is kind of how you do everything.
Yeah.
And there are areas where you can misinterpret, particularly in short form content and social media. Bragging about tricking somebody into buying something from you by like tricking them into showing you their wallet earlier in the call, and then like give me a gotcha like later on.
That's gross.
That's pretty gross.
Everyone here has been around the block enough to realize when we are seeing a person's personality versus seeing a one-off, maybe misinterpreted statement. Though, like you get after a while, you get a sense of these things. Oh, this is who this guy is, versus maybe he just kind of misspoke. It's easy to tell after a while. And those are the people that you avoid. And I can tell you this, one last statement from me. Well, maybe not the last, but I can tell you this, that I had a conversation with a student today before this podcast. And I can tell you that right away after having had that conversation, one of the biggest issues for this student's business is the lack of listening skills and lack of patience in allowing someone else to speak. And I thought, if this is the conversation that we're having, and you have this great a need for us to have this conversation, it's sort of like an emergency conversation.
You were his coach. You were his coach in this conversation.
I was his coach in this conversation. And what I was thinking is, given the circumstances of us having this conversation and the great need that you expressed to have this conversation, in sort of in the context of your lack of willingness to listen and your need to talk so much, if this is your operating sort of mentality when you have great need, I can only imagine how much you're talking when you should be enrolling someone, and the lack of your willingness to let the other person talk more. Because what I thought really was, ain't no goddamn way that you selling nobody as much as you talking to. Like, you talking my fucking head off right now. Like, there's no way that you get on the phone with a client and listen halfway good enough to know what to say, what to ask, what to do. Like, your feet got holes in them, bro, because you shoot yourself in them all day.
If this is how you talk when you're being coached,
right?
I can't even imagine. So there's a good framework that I want to share, and this comes from somebody named Julian Treasure. And Julian Treasure, if you're interested in his work, he has a couple of TED Talks that are great. But I've dove deep into his work. So I'm super noise sensitive, actually. Like loud noises just like drive me nuts. And so I've studied sound. I've studied noise a fair bit, because I've just been fascinated by it. And this guy's like, the money that he makes, his main job is actually designing sound for commerce. So there's a lot of fascinating research, and you see it in stores that, if somebody spends a longer period of time in a clothing store, for example, they're going to buy a lot more. And there's a lot of data on that. Well, sound positive sound, and that's both acoustics and like sound buzzed in. So, you know, like elevator type music versus like rock and roll versus like Abercrombie and Fitch. Like I'm just gonna like blow your socks off with sound and smell and whatever it is. Can really, really affect how much people buy. And so the majority of the money in his lab comes from basically that. But his real research is just like studying sound and how it affects us. And there's super, I geek out on this stuff a lot. For example, bird sounds. And so there's two interesting examples. And I read this research a long time ago. So if I'm wrong, whatever, go listen to a different podcast. But here's what I remember about it. Bird song engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which causes us to relax, which allows us to be much more creative, which allows us to get much more in the flow. The evolutionary explanation for that is that birds recognize when predators are around first. So we've evolved to be able to relax when there's birds present. Now, if there isn't birds present, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's predators. But if there are birds present, it means we're safe. And so our parasympathetic nervous system clicks on and we're able to be more creative and relax more. The second is has to do with ocean waves and circadian rhythms, or not circadian rhythms, but has to do with, God, I can't even remember the delta waves or gamma waves or one of the like deep REM sleep, whichever the deep REM sleep wave is. Do you guys know which one is that? When you're in like deep sleep and REM sleep.
I think it's
like,
delta. I think delta is a deep sleep state.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. This is a Richard Feynman thing. The famous physicist, part of the Manhattan Project, but like famous physicist, he would just like laugh at people who just knew the names for everything but didn't know what anything meant. It's just like the easiest way to identify somebody who doesn't know anything is somebody who knows the name for everything. And
I feel attacked now.
And I thought that was a neat. So I don't know what the name is, but thank you, Richard Feynman, for showing me that it's okay that I don't know what the name of this is. But the idea that Julian Treasure put forward was that the ocean waves were the exact same, basically, wavelength as these deep REM sleep waves that our body exhibits. And so that's why when we're by the ocean, we feel more at ease, relaxed, all that kind of stuff. Anyway.
It's
Julian
beta
Treasure,
and gamma, by the way.
Beta and gamma. Thank you, Amber.
You're welcome.
And so
Nice.
Julian Treasure has this framework for listening, which is RASA, RASA, which is receive, appreciate, summarize, ask. And so whenever anybody says anything, you follow that framework. You receive it. You take a minute and you let it sink in. You appreciate them for giving you, that's thank you so much for letting me know this. You summarize it, i.e. you paraphrase it in their own words, and then you ask them another question and go deeper into that thing. That simple framework, receive, appreciate, summarize, ask, is really all you need to know about sales. Maybe not everything, but like kind of most things, I think. So you
I
can
wrote
listen
that
to his
down.
talks. They're great. Yeah, it's a powerful framework. I think I'm ready, unless anybody else has anything to add to this topic. I think I'm ready to hear this.
So before he does
sledgehammer.
it, I actually plugged it into 3 different places: ChatGPT, Canva, and Notion. They all have AI writing abilities. So this one is actually,
wow, they got those set up quick, hey?
and Canva had by far the better rap song. So that's what I sent over.
Okay.
Let me see what we got. So we got a Skinny Butt Susan. I'm gonna go
Skinny
with
Butt Susan is what's her name, right?
Yes.
I'm Skinny Butt Susan.
You tell me when you're ready, and I will be your MC Tuck this time.
All right.
So I'll introduce you.
I'm gonna go with the Will's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme here and interject this into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air melody.
A fine choice. Are you ready to go?
I'm prepared.
Yeah,
How does Fred
ladies and gentlemen, introducing Len Jones, previously seen at the Apollo Theater, singing in the style of Will Smith's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Skinny Butt Susan. Take it away, Ray.
The skinny butt Susan, an icon around town. Her body ain't that big, but she sure is. Her booty ain't that big, but she sure is renowned. She may not have curves, but that's all right. Her attitude's sassy. She's always polite. Susan's style is unique. She rocks it so well. She loves to show off her skinny butt swell. Her positivity contagious, and that's so true. No matter what the size, she knows how to make it move. I like that. Oh, that's sassy. Skinny butt Susan, don't you ever forget? It's not about the size, it's about the way that you strut. Don't let no one tell you what's ugly or not. Just keep rocking those skinny butts. Yeah. I don't know why the yeah. That's she dances all night. She don't need no rest. Her moves are so tight. She's actually the best. She'll make you laugh and she'll make you smile. She's so much fun. That doesn't rhyme. She's a true queen, so go show some love. Skinny butt Susan, don't you ever forget. It's not about the size, it's about the way that you strut. Don't let no one tell you what's ugly or not. Just keep rocking those skinny butts because you're hot. I love that.
So I have a request that we need like a compilation album of Ren rapping or singing Chat GPT songs. Like that should be a whole TikTok channel in and of itself.
Oh my goodness.
I gotta read these up front because I gotta improvise some of the words that don't rhyme. They threw me off. But I think I'm gonna spend a little time with this. Okay. And I'd like to come back to redo this.
That'd be fun.
At another time. Give me some time. But
be sure you check back in on the Obvious Choice podcast later on. Thank you for listening today, everybody. We hope that you're great, and podcast out.
Podcast out.
Skinny butt Susan, because you're hot.
Skinny butt Susan.